All right, Robby, what's on your radar today?
Well, Brianna, the Global Disinformation Index, or the GDI, is a British organization that evaluates news outlets' susceptibility to disinformation. The ultimate aim is to persuade online advertisers to blacklist dangerous publications and websites. One such publication, according to GDI's extremely dubious criteria, is Reason Magazine, which is the publication I write for when I'm not doing this job. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. I hear you laughing, Brianna. At least according to GDI's recent report on disinformation, which notes that the organization exists to help, quote, advertisers and the ad tech industry in assessing the reputational and brand risk when advertising with online media outlets and to help them avoid financially supporting disinformation online. The U.S. government evidently values this work. In fact, the State Department subsidizes it. The National Endowment for Democracy, a state-supported nonprofit that has received $330 million in taxpayer dollars, contributed hundreds of thousands of dollars to the GDI's budget, according to an investigation by the Washington Examiner's Gabe Kaminsky. It's an excellent piece. You should check it out. Now, should the State Department spend public money to help a foreign-based organization pressure advertisers to punish U.S. media companies? I think the answer, quite obviously, is no. The First Amendment prohibits the U.S. government from censoring private companies for good reason, and government actors should not seek to evade the First Amendment's protections in order to censor indirectly. The Washington Examiner, which was included as well on GDI's list of risky media outlets, confirmed that it has in fact lost out on revenue due to advertisers heeding GDI's federally subsidized concerns. An internal GDI memo singles out Amazon for purchasing ad space on an Examiner article that allegedly included right-wing misinformation. But GDI evidently considers Reason, again, that's the magazine I write for, even more threatening than the Washington Examiner. Reason is listed among the 10 absolute riskiest online news sources. Sounds kind of badass. Alongside the New York Post, Real Clear Politics, The Daily Wire, The Blaze, One America News Network, The Federalist, Newsmax, The American Spectator, and The American Conservative. Almost all of those conservative outlets. Now, I should note that The Hill, which is the news organization that we work for here at Rising, they were also evaluated by GDI, but its overall listing wasn't available anywhere that I could find in GDI's actual report, so I have no idea what the ultimate assessment was, just that they were not on the 10 worst or 10 best list. How's that for transparency? Now, Reason's high-risk rating, on the other hand, was chalked up to 3 factors in the report. Quote, no information regarding authorship attribution, pre-publication fact-checking or post-publication corrections processes, or policies to prevent disinformation in its comment section. So they weren't actually accusing us of having any actual disinformation on the website. And it's not clear precisely what they mean. The organization did not respond to my request for comments clarification. But contrary to what they suggest, the authorship of Reason articles is clearly communicated to readers. Reason writers link to their sources frequently and reliably, and they note corrections whenever appropriate. When evaluated by a disinformation tracking organization that uses transparent and objective metrics, my magazine has fared much better. NewsGuard is an evaluator that's co-founded by Gordon Krovitz, a former publisher of the Wall Street Journal. NewsGuard gives Reason a perfect score of 100 out of 100 and does not steer advertisers away. NewsGuard also gives the Washington Examiner a score of 92.5 out of 100. In a recent op-ed for The Examiner, Krovitz explained how NewsGuard's processes differ from the opaque blacklisting system preferred by the Global Disinformation Index. Unlike the ratings of news sites done by the entities cited in the Washington Examiner series, Krovitz writes, NewsGuard ratings are done with full transparency and disclosure using only apolitical criteria. Everything is done by humans, including the ratings by our analysts of all the news and information sites that account for 95% of engagement in the United States and the other countries where we operate. Each site gets a score from 0 to 100 based on 9 basic criteria of journalistic practice. Unlike others, we don't rely on artificial intelligence. Only human intelligence can be held accountable to be accurate and apolitical. Publishers can also make changes to address our questions. More than 1/4 of the sites we've rated, including many conservative sites, have improved their scores by making additional disclosures or otherwise improving their practices after engaging with our analysts. Now, as NewsGuard's evaluation makes clear, the magazine I write for is not an unsafe website, and if the Global Disinformation Index is pretending otherwise, then this government-funded hall monitor is the one spreading disinformation. It is also worth noting that GDI ranked the 10 lowest risk online news outlets, which include NPR, the Associated Press, the New York Times, ProPublica, Insider, USA Today, the Washington Post, BuzzFeed, the Wall Street Journal, and Huffington Post, now known as HuffPost. Now, many of these publications frequently produce journalism that I find admirable, but they are not immune to disinformation. HuffPost, for example, repeatedly suggested that the New York Post's infamous Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian misdirection. If a disinfo tracking organization wants to loudly proclaim, in partisan fashion, that advertisers should only use mainstream and liberal news sites, okay, it has that right, but advertisers should take note of its obvious biases and methodological issues. And regardless, the U.S. government has no business funding it. So I think we found some stuff to cut in the budget, save a little bit of money. What do you think?
Yeah, I
the
think
State Department's grant to this disinfo tracker of British origin?
It's outrageous. And your description of them as a hall monitor is right on point. I mean, legacy media has been crazy with bees in its bonnet for years now, as there is increased democratization of other kinds of news media because the internet gave the power to people to start their own magazines, to not need a printing press, to not need all this infrastructure, to not need the go-ahead by people with enormous amounts of capital. And it has created a diffuse media ecosystem with a lot of different kinds of views. Do I agree with all of those views that are out there? Of course not. But have I had cause to read reason articles that are informative and, bolster the kind of libertarian socialist points, frankly, that I'm making from time to time, or just do straight news reporting? Of course, and it's absolutely ridiculous to try to use financial incentives and bully out advertisers in order to basically make sure that there's still a siloed uni opinion that exists for people to consume. It's outrageous.
Like, if I was going to stand on a high horse, saddle up on a high horse, whatever, I don't know where I'm taking this metaphor.
Not a writer here.
and be the guy on disinfo. I'm an expert on disinformation. Yeah. My expertise is identifying disinformation in other people. I would feel like I had to be pretty sure that my thing is free of error. And this report I read by this group on the disinfo in our publications, it is very unclear as it's structuring these criteria what they mean. Like, they said authorship attribution. I'm like, so I assumed that meant they're saying our articles are not don't have authors. Yeah. Like, maybe 10 years ago, we used to run things that had already run in the magazine with a byline. They would also get added to the website. It would say reason staff. Mm-hmm. But it was also on the website with the actual, right. It was just kind of it was an old website publishing thing. I'm like, is that what they mean? Then I'm looking more closely and it's saying, oh, are they saying we don't hyperlink enough, the authorship of things we're citing are not linked enough, because we do link all the time. Mm-hmm. But you can't tell, and I couldn't tell what the Hill's ranking was on this thing, and the Hill was evaluated, but because they said everything that was evaluated, but they only listed what the 10 best and the 10 worst were.
Was it paywalled maybe?
No, it was in the reports in a PDF. I downloaded.
That's so bizarre. I mean, when you were going through, at one point you threw up some screen grab, and it was the evidence of right-wing disinformation. You got to say specifically, do they give any examples of this is an article, this is a citation that's right-wing disinformation? So
they had a memo that the Washington Examiner obtained. It was not, I think it was an internal memo, so it was not part of the report. It was not meant to be seen. And basically, it was an opinion piece. It was an opinion piece for the Examiner, making a conservative argument about the transgender movement. I'm sure you would have disagreed with it. I might very well have disagreed with it. But it was an opinion piece. Yeah. It wasn't trying to launch, this is news and has some kind of agenda. And they were flagging, oh, look at this Amazon ad that appears in this. This is something for you to be wary of. Yeah. This is very concerning.
And the comments as well.
That was the other thing. They were mad at Reason because our comments are very lightly policed. If it's really bad down there, maybe we delete something. But usually it's kind of a free-for-all. And it's part of our ethos that you get to have a comment section where it can go off the rails, but that's up to the people participating. So to blame the site for that, I mean, that's kind of just a contrary philosophical point of view that they were dinging us for. Yeah,
it's wild. I don't think you're the problem, Taylor Swift. This sounds outrageous, and I'm glad you reported on it. Great radar.
Thank you, Brianna.
We'll have more Rising for you right after this.